The Democrats' worst nightmare is coming true. Jack Ciattarelli is on the verge of flipping New Jersey red. What was supposed to be a safe blue state is now a toss-up. Poll after poll shows the Democrat lead evaporating, and in some cases, Jack is already ahead. Independents are breaking red by double digits. Working class families are fed up with the liberal status quo, and even Democrat mayors are endorsing him.
So we have some major electoral news to bring you today, because whether it's this special election that took place last night in Tennessee or the upcoming New Jersey governor's race, which, by the way, is getting extremely close, I think the overall picture is clear that Hakeem Jeffries is in serious political trouble for two key reasons. Reason number one, he is incapable. He cannot stop these AOC, Zohran Mamdani style radical progressives from taking over the Democrat Party. Time and time again, as we'll discuss here as well in Tennessee, they keep on winning these Democrat primaries. They have a tidal wave of momentum among Democrat voters, which may make them feel great. But of course, what's the problem for Jeffries? Well, number one, these types of figures obviously pose a threat to his own personal leadership. But secondly, to the Democrat Party as a whole when you look at the 2026 midterms, because after all, Zohran Mamdani may be electable in a place like New York City, but try running a bunch of those clones in swing districts and see how far that gets you. That's problem number one. But on that front as well, of how will the progressivism actually translate to general elections where you have to run against Republicans, that is exactly where we shift to the New Jersey governor's race, where you're increasingly seeing the pattern here that the current trend of anti-Trump hysteria out of the Democrat Party, and this belief they have that Trump's the most unpopular, terrible president ever, and nobody likes him, and everybody regrets their vote, is not actually proving to be enough to carry Democrats to electoral victories. As a matter of fact, even in a deep blue state where Kamala Harris won, and this should be an easy layup slam dunk for the Democrat Party, turns out they're struggling. What exactly is going on there? Because, ladies and gentlemen, let us not forget that this should be easy for the Democrats. After all, according to history, they are currently the non-incumbent party, right? Donald Trump is the president. So there should be a lot of energy and galvanization on the left wing right now to say, hey, we're going to organize as a party. Let's approach the 2026 midterms. Historically, they should win. And after all, defending an already blue state should not be all that complicated. But the opposite is happening. Why? Two reasons. Number one, when the Democrat Party is sitting at a 20% approval rating, what do you expect? But secondly, of course, maybe the other fact that they're going to have to deal with here is that perhaps Donald Trump is actually a little more popular than they believe he is. Nonetheless, we'll tell you all about this here today. Major takeaways to bring you both out of Tennessee in the upcoming New Jersey race. First, though, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. That is the best way to support our work and ensure that we can keep doing these videos. And that said, so what exactly happened last night? You're probably asking, there's a Tennessee special election. I didn't even know about it. Not super relevant necessarily on the grand scheme of things. But again, I think the trend here, the takeaway is very interesting. Again, a radical AOC progressive now winning yet again, but in this case, in a completely unwinnable seat. So it's like, what does this mean? We'll tell you. Here's the reporting from Fox News. Democrats on Tuesday picked their nominee in a special congressional election. This was a primary, by the way, for a vacant seat in Tennessee. Afton Benn, a former healthcare community organizer and current Democrat state representative, captured her party's nomination, according to the Associated Press. Now, take a listen to this. The Dickson County Democrat Party described Benn as, quote, our very own AOC of Tennessee, in a reference to, obviously, AOC out of New York, according to the Tennessee Star. So they're not exactly hiding the fact and celebrating the fact that, hey, one of these crazy progressives, as a total middle finger to Hakeem Jeffries and Democrat congressional leadership, ended up winning in this election. Now, Benn, though, as is pointed out here, here's the problem, will now be considered the underdog in the December 2nd general election in the race to succeed former Republican Representative Mark Green, who resigned from office in June to take a private sector job. And here's, of course, the problem with it. The progressives are going to stand here and celebrate and say, wow, that's so amazing. The progressives are winning. But again, I'm guessing right now. Actually, I'm not guessing. I know for a fact right now, they're using the fact that Zoran's going to win in New York as like this proof of a nationwide mandate. But ladies and gentlemen, I would just like to point out the very place where they think it's exactly a smart idea to be running a progressive. This is a seat that the former Republican Mark Green won by over 21 points back in 2024. By the way, if you look at the presidential margin, it is indeed very similar. Trump won here 56-41 back in 2020. And by the way, I believe back in 2022, the Republican won by 22 points. So this is already a deep red district. And so, if you want the chance of potentially maybe pulling an upset, of course, why exactly do you run the progressive? Well, the answer is actually very simple. It's not that anyone wants to, it's that they can't get their voters to pick anything else. And even today, ladies and gentlemen, the Democrat leader Hakeem Jeffries is still, of course, struggling to answer questions about the Zoran Mamdani phenomenon. He's clearly not really doing a good job of handling this. And that's exactly what happened when Republican Representative Mike Lawler confronted him on this very issue, stating, and I quote, "You're so afraid of Zoran Mamdani. By the way, when are you endorsing him?" And Hakeem is like, I don't know.
Ploy because you're so afraid of Zoran Mamdani. By the way, when are you endorsing him?
By the way,
do you endorse him for mayor?
First of all, are you
going to endorse him for mayor?
Listen, you're a complete and total embarrassment right now.
Oh, why is that? Because you don't want to answer the question?
Is this supposed to be a video for your failed re-election?
You don't want to answer the question? Do you support Zoran? By the way, did you see his statement yesterday?
Listen.
An embarrassment on October 7th blaming the Jews? You support that? Should he be the Democratic nominee for mayor?
First of all, I don't answer to you.
Should he be the Democratic mayor? Should he be the Democratic nominee for mayor?
I'll answer whatever questions I need to answer about the mayor's race.
Okay, so you think his statement yesterday was okay?
First of all,
that's sad.
First of all,
yeah, well, you got to love how he said he would answer the questions about the mayor's race and then proceeded to not answer any questions about the mayor's race. But of course, Hakeem doesn't know how to speak about this. Because on one hand, the truth is he does not want the radical left to win because he wants to win. Although you could argue they're one and the same, but still, let us at the same time not forget that this entire government shutdown stunt is simply happening as a means to appease the radical left. Here is, of course, the problem, is that looking forward, again, what is the big takeaway of this? Is that if Democrat leadership cannot stop these radical progressives from winning all the primaries and heading off to the general elections versus Republicans, then you're not going to see a repeat of New York City everywhere, right? The reality could be, going into the midterms, that even if Democrats have the momentum and the energy of the anti-incumbent kind of factor on their side, they could still head off the cliff and towards electoral doom simply because they did not pick the right candidates. Pretty simple. Needless to say, progressives don't necessarily appeal everywhere, including in swing districts. Now, that is obviously good news for Republicans. At the same time, I also want to warn people, we have to be careful about this trend as well, because while progressives don't necessarily have the same broad appeal, one thing to point out is that they definitely do, and this is what you should be worried about and make sure you don't get complacent. They do obviously energize Democrat voters, right? Democrats are excited to vote for these people because they're like radical, crazy lunatics, and they want someone who they feel like is going to truly fight Donald Trump and all of this garbage. And that, again, even if progressives don't have broad appeal, usually in off-year and midterm elections, it doesn't necessarily come to winning the hearts and minds. It comes down to turnout, right? Whose voter base shows up to the ballot box more than the other one? And so you have to be careful of that, because the progressives could win potentially these kinds of elections where, even this one in Tennessee, right? There have been cases, for instance, in small special elections since 2025 began, where like a state Senate seat, I think this was in Pennsylvania, that went for Trump by 15, 20 points, the Democrat flipped by 1 because there was only like 10% turnout. So that is obviously something we also have to be careful and try to ward off. At the same time, I could further make the argument that while progressives do galvanize Democrat voters to show up, they also galvanize Republican voters, right? Because there's the fear factor. Republicans are scared of potentially seeing those people in office. And when you look at, for instance, the Tennessee race right here, I do believe that does appear to be the case. Now, that said, if you live in the Tennessee 7th District, you had no idea about this, make sure, of course, you go vote on the December 2nd general election. But you can see the total Republican turnout It was about like 32,000 voters approximately. Democrats only 22,000. So it looks like even with the progressive energy and probably a lack of Republican energy, still, right, in this plus 15, plus 20 district, it's not enough for the progressives. That said, of course, talking on this very issue of turnout, I would argue this might currently be having as well an effect on the New Jersey governor's race, where that big tidal wave of progressive momentum in New York City, obviously referring to Zohran Mamdani, may be backfiring in the slightly more moderate state of New Jersey, where the Republican electorate, who probably thus far was kind of complacent, didn't have much of a reason to care, now that they're seeing what's happened in New York City is like, oh shoot, I gotta go vote. Because ladies and gentlemen, a poll just released today by The Hill, keep in mind, New Jersey is a blue state. I believe Kamala Harris won it by about 5 to 6, currently shows the Republican Jack Ciattarelli tied at 43% with the Democrat in the race, Mikey Sherrill. Ladies and gentlemen, this is currently a race that is starting to look extremely, extremely competitive. And keep in mind, this is not an election we're supposed to win. I don't believe in moral victories, but I will say if this race was even within 5, I would say that is a good turnout because after all, it's New Jersey. But we're not just having that conversation of can it be kind of close? It is now the conversation of genuinely, does the Republican Ciattarelli have a legitimate shot at winning? You look at the overall polling aggregate out of Open Source Zone. Currently, Sherrill has about exactly a 3-point lead on average. So just to show you, even if there's one poll that's tied, but you want to say, oh, what do other polls say? That's the average, right? Sherrill plus 3. Keep in mind, the election is about a month away and polls have a margin of error. So it is to say, Ciattarelli is currently 100% in striking distance, right? And the situation may be looking even better because we just also got the news very recently here. This is as of this month. New Jersey Republicans just expanded their mail-in ballot return rate to an all-time high this election cycle for the governor's race. The mail-in ballots are 4.3 points more red than at this point in 2024. So Republicans are actually having better turnout this time than even when Donald Trump defeated Kamala Harris, which is probably indicative of two things. First of all, New Jersey is a state that's trending to the right. It's becoming more Republican. But again, if you want to assume the theory about midterm or off-year elections, where the Republican voters in this case, because Trump is the president, just won't really care, but the Democrat voters are angry, so they're going to show up to vote, that's not happening. And again, why is that not happening? Because the radical left, which is taking over a very close city nearby, is, I would argue, among other things, I don't think Mikey Sherrill, for instance, is a very good candidate. We'll talk about that in a second, but is galvanizing or scaring Republicans to actually show up. See, that's the double-edged sword, understand Democrats, of these progressive candidates. You may think they energize your people. They energize our people as well. That said, here are these numbers. Mail-in ballot return rates. The Republicans are actually leading the mail-in ballot returns as we speak. This is a sign of high energy. 28% to the Democrats, 26%. Overall, mail-in voting obviously is heavily dominated by Democrats in general, yet Republicans currently leading in those mail-in votes. And ladies and gentlemen, as if the Democrats did not already have reason and cause enough to panic, it's further worth noting that as compared to the last election, which if you remember back to 2021, Ciattarelli, the same Republican, actually almost won against arguably a stronger Democrat candidate at the time, that since that point, 4 years ago, Democrats have lost about 47,000 voters in the state of New Jersey. Republicans have gained about 167,000. This is something pointed out extensively by Scott Presler today. So take a listen.
The effort to boost GOP voter turnout in key races and has been on the ground in New Jersey. And he joins me now. Scott, thank you for joining us. Okay, so the latest Fox News poll has Mikey Sherrill up by 8 points. You say that it's closer than that. Is that right?
Absolutely. Anyone who says that Mikey cheating scandal Sherrill is up by 8 right now, that is baloney. Don't listen to the polls. The only poll that matters is on Tuesday, November 4th, 2025, Election Day.
What makes you think that it's tighter than 8 points?
From what we're seeing on the ground, This is a state that went double digits for Joe Biden and went within 5 percentage points for President Donald Trump. And in Passaic County, we are seeing the beautiful Hispanic community come over to the Republican Party in a way that we haven't seen before. We are courting minority communities, and that's why Mikey cheating scandal Cheryl is so scared.
All right, I hear the nickname. That's your words, not mine. This is something that's helping Jack Ciattarelli for sure. Since the last gubernatorial race, the GOP has added 167,000 voters in New Jersey, while Democrats have lost over 47,000. You are a part of the reason that is happening in getting voters to turn out for Republicans. But when it comes to issues and politics on the ground, look at those numbers there. Why is this happening?
Let's be real. Lockdown Phil Murphy is a reason why so many people are now joining the Republican Party. And I have a message for the viewer at home. If you want to ban offshore wind, vote Jack Ciattarelli. If you want to bring down property taxes, vote Jack Ciattarelli. If you want to bring down electricity prices, vote Jack Ciattarelli. If you want school choice, vote Jack Ciattarelli. This is your candidate. We are no longer going to bow down to the Democrats in Trenton. And this is time for the people in New Jersey to take back your state, and I ask for your vote on Tuesday, November 4th, 2025 for Jack Ciattarelli for governor.
Yeah, and look, here's what I'll say as well. This is not me making a prediction. This is not me saying that it's going to happen. It's just an observation. That much about this New Jersey 2025 governor's race feels eerily similar to, if you remember back then, sort of the circumstances, the 2021 Virginia governor's race, where the Republican, now Glenn Youngkin, kind of won a miracle upset. People thought it was impossible, right? Virginia's a state long gone. There's no way it could go red in basically any statewide race over the Democrat Terry McAuliffe. Now, looking back, it has always felt like an inevitability. Oh, Glenn Youngkin, he was such a strong candidate. But I'd like to keep in mind, you know, the majority of that election cycle, he was down in the polls. He was thought to be the underdog. And it's like, close polls, what's really going to happen? But if you kind of remember back, what you did see was sort of this very spectacular collapse by the Democrat candidate. Terry was horrible, right? Just not a good candidate. Glenn Youngkin, an amazing candidate. I think you're seeing that kind of happen here as well. Whereas we get through October and the situation gets worse for the Democrat candidate, who's completely incompetent, much like the one who ran in Virginia, in this case, that being Mikey Sherrill of New Jersey. You see the polls starting to go from like 4, 5, 6 points Democrat lead to now 3, and then they're tied. And then maybe toward the end of the month, who knows, they start to invert themselves. I'm just saying the patterns here are seeming to be pretty similar. And it's also worth noting Mikey Sherrill, yeah, terrible candidate. And if you don't believe me, I mean, just take a listen to this very recent town hall event of her answering a question on plastic bags in New Jersey. And you can tell, right? It is a blue state. She has the built-in advantage, but she herself is completely idiotic, stupid, and incompetent, much like the Terry McAuliffe in Virginia before her. Take a listen.
Yes or no? I'm not getting involved in the New York mayor's race. The mayor of New York City about the tunnel and
your opponent has said that he would, if elected, he would reverse our state's plastic bag ban. Do you have a position on that?
I think we shouldn't be using plastic bags.
Talk about a DEI hire just pictured in something. Yeah. She has no clue what she's even talking about. Won't answer questions, by the way, on Zoran, which a lot of the more moderate or even just like Jewish population of New Jersey is going to want an answer on. She won't say that, right? And then even on plastic bags. I don't think we should use plastic bags. Which, by the way, is not even a super popular policy. Like, people get annoyed with the bag policies and the environmental stuff. But even then, she can't even answer it articulately. Right? She also, by the way, got completely destroyed in the governor's debate that coincidentally happened on the same night as the Charlie Kirk funeral, so maybe a lot of people didn't see it. But this is just all to say, right? It is winnable. Now, am I going to be super upset if we lose? I don't live in New Jersey, so not necessarily, because again, it's a Democrat state. If we're competitive in that state when Trump is the president and the Democrats have the kind of anti-incumbent way of working in their favor, not against them, I will say that's a victory. But I think it goes further than that. I think you're looking at the polls, you're looking at the stunning comparisons to Virginia in 2021. We can do this, guys. The only question is, will we? Well, that's to say that if you live in the state of New Jersey, make sure you go vote. If you live in that Tennessee district, number 7, December 2nd, if I remember that date correctly, make sure you go vote. And across the country, right? You live in California with the redistricting. You live in Virginia, go vote, right? But again, not looking so good for Democrats. The arrogance they might have had, looking at, for instance, maybe the Wisconsin election earlier this year, or the belief that, oh, the DOJ cuts and immigration, these ICE raids, everyone hates them. Trump is imploding. It's horrible. He's crashing the economy, all this stuff. I don't know. That might not be working so well, right, guys? But with that said, let me know your thoughts on all of that in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and until next time, God bless, go vote, and peace.